And if we look at the kinds of jobs that are being created and lost in the economy, because of course, the economy is constantly churning and people are moving in and out of different jobs and new types of jobs are being created and existing jobs are shrinking. Part of what we're seeing is that those jobs that are relatively routine, where a robot could take it over or a software algorithm could predict what needs to happen, that those jobs are shrinking in terms of the total number of people in those occupations in the economy. And that's true whether you're doing routine physical work, manual work, or routine cognitive work. Whereas those non-routine jobs that require human thinking, human creativity, social engagement in those service jobs, well, those are the ones that are increasing, whether they're manual work or cognitive work overall. And this has led to predictions from a wide range of different people that we're going to see widespread job loss as artificial intelligence comes along, machine learning, the ability to recognize voices and face recognition. There'll be all sorts of new activities that can be turned over to computers, and those paid jobs will be lost. Larry Summers, an economist, said, well, half the jobs might be eliminated by innovation, such as self-driving vehicles, automated checkout machines, replacing all those cashiers and retailers, and expert systems. There's a very widely cited study that was done out of Oxford where they looked at all of the different jobs that existed in the US economy and which ones could be automated in the next, say, 10 to 20 years, and estimated that maybe 47% of US jobs could be eliminated by 2035. And Vivek Wadhwa, who's an investor and venture capitalist in the high-tech industry, says, well, maybe 80 to 90% of US jobs could be eliminated in 10 to 15 years. Well, I want to tell you, don't fear the robots. Most of these predictions are based on a very simple projection of what might be technically possible, but without looking at what are the barriers to adoptions of these new technologies, either through the systems of production or through consumer preference. And when you're using jobs as a unit of analysis, you come up with these tremendously inflated estimates. Whereas if you actually look at the individual tasks that people are doing in the jobs that we have in the US economy, you find out by sophisticated studies that maybe 5 to 10% of jobs have 100% of the tasks that could be eliminated. And maybe there's 50 to 60% of jobs that have some significant portion of tasks that could be automated in different ways, but it's not going to completely replace the job. And the other side of this, of course, is that we're constantly creating new jobs all the time. Remember that chart that showed we used to have 70% of people in agriculture? Well, we've automated all those jobs in agriculture and yet created a whole bunch of new jobs. And my favorite example of this has to do with the single occupation that has been eliminated in the statistics we gather over the last 50 to 60 years because of technological obsolescence, and it's elevator operators. And what this chart shows is the number of people in the US economy employed as elevator operators starting in 1870 up to a peak in 1950 and then down to 1990, where finally we no longer gather statistics on elevator operators in our census. Now, when do you think the first autonomous elevator technology came into being? Well, if you look at this chart, you might think, oh, maybe roughly around 1950. The technology emerges, and if those predictions are correct, whew, it's going to rapidly replace the number of people being elevator operators. Well, turns out the first driverless elevators were first invented in about 1900. And yet, despite that, over the next 50 years, the number of people employed as elevator operators increased. And that's essentially for two reasons. One is, well, in addition to being able to develop the technology around operating elevators autonomously, we developed other technologies that allowed us to build skyscrapers and many, many more skyscrapers. So it led to an increasing demand for elevator operators. And that was combined with consumer preference. It's a little scary to get into a box with no windows. You're used to someone there being able to move you up and down to exactly the right point in the floor, and to be able to go in and just push a button, well, that's a little scary in the same way that it might be today getting into an autonomous vehicle with no driver in it and telling it to go somewhere. That's a little scary. And so for most of those 50 years, there was consumer resistance to getting in autonomous elevators. What happened roughly a couple years before 1950, though, was a major strike of elevator operators in New York City. And there was tremendous inconvenience for all the office workers and people living in high-rise apartment buildings in New York City in that time. And so that contributed to an increasing acceptance of automatic elevators, and that was part of what led to that. And so the story about that, or the lessons to take away from that, is that there are many things that might limit how fast new technologies diffuse through the economy, and one of those has to do with consumer acceptance.